Hey friends, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Hey, Daf 35 of Masechta Ksubis. Friends. Oh gosh. Yo, what if somebody gave what if somebody did like a guest recording of Babylon Talmud? Not that I have any plans of that. Not that I have any plans of relinquishing my authority in this kingdom, this dictatorship. Well, yeah. No, but if somebody else did the thing, would they do that same intro? I feel like my intro has changed over time, but not so often. Recently it's been the how you doing there, friends. I mean, who knows? Maybe before you know it, it'll be something else. Well, today we're studying Daf Lamed Hey, Daf 35. Now, Daf 35 talks about it's a gewaltige daf. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, these are real sugyas, These are real sugyas, It's interesting. These dafs aren't big dafs. They're pretty small dafs, but you gotta work through it, man. You gotta work through it, but it's gewaldig, man. I can't help but compare this to Yevamis. I mean, Yevamis just makes your head spin. You gotta work for this. So, this is good stuff, friends. Oh, so we're talking about if you're chayev misa or chayev makis, but you didn't get warned, so mainly you're not gonna get misa or makis. Do you then have to pay money? Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. So, and then at the end we get a little bit of some confusing stuff at the end, but we'll get there at the end. So we're going to start on Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom. Bishlomo Rabbi Yochanan lo amar Rish Lakish. So I understand why Rabbi Yochanan didn't say Rish Lakish. The kamukam la krabanan el Rish Lakish matam lo amar Rabbi Yochanan. Friends. What in the world are we talking about? Well, no big deal. We have our Mishnah in Ksubis that says that by onus umefate, so actually specifically by achoso and these arayas, so you are chayiv to pay the knas, the 50 shekels. Now we have a Mishnah in Makis that says that you get lashes. Now the assumption, so which one is it is basically the question, right? In Ksubis we're saying it's a knas, it's a fine. In Makis we're saying it's makis. So which one is it? So Rabbi Yochanan says, well, it depends if he was warned or not, right? It's eino loko mishalin, right? Rabbi Yochanan's assuming the Rabbanon that you wouldn't get makis and also have to pay. It's only one or the other. So Rabbi Yochanan says, look, right? Somebody who I used to work for used to say very simple. It was not. Whenever he would say very simple, that's how you know it's not simple. And you have to now convince him and explain to him why what he's saying actually is not a good idea. Because it would not be very simple. I mean, not that that's my mahalach. I'm very much into trying to make things work as opposed to saying why things don't work. Right? Don't get me wrong. But if that guy would say very simple, it means he's trying to take something which doesn't make sense and explain why we should do it because it's very simple. Anyways, where were we? So Rabbi Yochanan holds the Rabbanan that says eino loko mishalim, that you don't get malchus and also have to pay money. So how do we reconcile these two mishnayos? Very simple. In Makis, it's talking about where he was warned that he says, hey brother, if you are onus or mafata, you're going to get makis, and he does it anyways. He says, I know, and he does it anyways. So then he gets makis, but if there was no warning, so then it's moment. Now Rish Lakish had said that actually you can reconcile this by saying it's the opinion of Rav Meir. That Rav Meir says, loke u'mishalim, that you could taka get both. And therefore, Rish Lakish would say that the reason why you warn him and you say if you do this you're going to get makis, and he accepts it and he does it anyways, so he gets makis, and he also has to pay the fine because it's the opinion of Reb Meir that loka u'mishalim, that you get makis and as well as having to pay money. We don't say it's either or. Now Our Gemara says, B'Shlam Rabbi Yochanan. So I understand Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Lo Amar Rish Lakish. Why he doesn't say like Rish Lakish to come Mokim Lak Rabbanon? Well, he's holding like the Rabbanon. I mean, that makes sense. Machlokas, Meir, and the Rabbanon. Who do we hold like? We hold like the Rabbanon, of course. So I understand Rabbi Yochanan because he's saying like the Rabbanon. Rish Lakish, my time Lo Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Why doesn't Rish Lakish hold like Rabbi Yochanan? I.e., right? Say like Rabbi Yochanan that it's because he wasn't warned. Right, meaning if he was warned, he would get makis. If he wasn't warned, it would be mammon, but it wouldn't be both of them. And then it could be like the Rabbanon. Why is Rish Lakish going out of his way to say that it's like Reb Meir, which is a das yachid, a singular opinion? So Amar Lach, the reason is because Rish Lakish would say to you, look, I can't say like Rabbi Yochanan, because kevan de ilu asrbe potter, kilo asrbe nami potter. That according to Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan holds like the rabbis, that it's either or. And therefore, if you warn the fellow because of makis, right? If you warn the fellow that if you sleep with your sister, let's say, you're going to get makis. And if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, holds like the rabbis, that it's either makis or mammon. So if he gets makis, then he's potter from mammon. Well, says Rish Lakish, look, in that case, even if they didn't warn him, he would still be potter from mammon. It's not either or. It's that, if when you would warn him, he'd be chayiv makis and potter from mammon, so then even if you don't warn him, he's still oichid potter from mammon. That's what Rish Lakish says. We're going to explain why in a second. Right, so again, Amalach, Rish Lakish would say to you, came the ilu asrbe potter, that according to Rabbi Yochanan, based on the opinion of the rabbis, that if when they warn him that he's going to get makis, and he gets makis, so then he's going to be potter from mammon, then kilo asrbe nami potter. Then even if they don't warn him for makis, he would still be potter from having to pay mammon. So, according to that, based on Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, you would basically never, how can you explain our Mishnah? You would never be chayiv to pay mammon. Which is essentially what the Gemara is going to ask at the end of the daf. Which is a little bit confusing to understand that, but essentially the Gemara is going to explain that at the end of the daf. So basically, Rabbi Yochanan, who says that, well, when they warn him for, right, he holds like the rabbis that it's either makis or mammon, and if they warn him for makis, so then he gets makis, but if they don't warn him for makis, then he doesn't get makis, so then he gets mammon. So that's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Whereas Rish Lakish holds, look, if when you warn him, he doesn't pay mammon, so then even when you don't warn him, he oichid doesn't pay mammon. So, where am I? Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish are consistent with their respective opinions. Because when Rav Dimi came, he said, Chayve misos shogigin, v'chayve malkis shogigin, v'davar acher. That when you have a situation of somebody who does something that he would be chayiv misa for, but you didn't warn him, and he also would be chayiv davar acher, i.e. mamanis. So if you have misa umamun, v'chayve malkis shogigin v'davar acher, and also somebody would be chayiv makis if you warned him, but you didn't warn him, and he's also chayiv for money, right? So basically, you have somebody who's chayiv misa and right misa umamun, but you didn't warn him for misa, or somebody who's chayiv malkis umamun, but you didn't warn him for makis. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says Rabbi Yochanan chayiv. Rabbi Yochanan says, well, if you didn't warn him for misa, or you didn't warn him for makis, which means memela, we're not going to kill him, we're not going to whip him. So then you chayiv to pay the money. Rish Lakish Omar Potter. Whereas Rish Lakish says, no. If you didn't warn him for misa or for makis, he's nonetheless Potter for paying the money. That just like if he would be chayiv misa or chayiv makis, he wouldn't have to pay the money. So oichit, if he is not chayiv misa or not chayiv makis because you didn't warn him, so then still he's Potter from paying the money. Now, Rabbi Yochanan Omar chayiv. So Rabbi Yochanan says he's taka chayiv to pay the money. Deha lo asube. Well, because they didn't warn him, right? Let's take the example of makis, right? They didn't warn him for makis, so he's not chayiv makis. So memele, let him pay the money. Rish Lakish Omar. Rish Lakish says Potter that he doesn't have to pay the money because kevan di'ilu Asube Potter, well, if they would have warned him and he'd be chayiv the punishment, so then he'd be Potter from paying the money, well, then Kilo Asube Nami, even if they don't warn him and technically speaking he's not going to get the punishment, still, Potter is still not going to have to pay back the money. Eis Rish Lakish le Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish now asks a kasha to Rabbi Yochanan. What's the kasha? V'lo yiyah asun onush yonish. The kasha is that, of course, there are these psukim that we've been referencing recently regarding these two fellows, Reuven and Shimon, are fighting. Reuven goes to give a zetz to Shimon. He misses. He hits Sarah. A whole mess. Sarah is pregnant and she's a miscarriage and she dies and all sorts of terrible things. So now it says V'lo yiyeh ason onish yonish. So if Sarah does not die, she survives. Well, then he has to pay for the value of the fetus of the miscarriage, right, of this child that was killed. My love ason mamish. And what does this mean? It means literally death, right? Meaning in the event that Sarah survives, then anoshi onish, then you pay money, then you pay the value of the fetuses. But if Sarah dies, regardless of if there was hasra, regardless of if there was warning, regardless of if Reuven is now going to be chayiv misa, regardless of all these things, money's out of the question. Right? Only if she survives is there financial obligation on Reuven. If she dies, there's no financial obligation on Reuven, regardless of if there was warning or not, regardless of if we're going to be able to kill Reuven or not. So that's the kasha that Rish Lakish asked the Rabbi Yochanan, that apparently, regardless of if there's hasra, and regardless of if we're going to kill Reuven, there's no financial payment. So lo din asun, to which Rabbi Yochanan says, meh. Rabbi Yochanan says what it means is lo yeh din asun, that if we're not able to basically kill Reuven because there was no asra or because she survived, whatever it is, so in that case he's going to have to pay mammon. He's going to have to pay money. But kilu, right? If as long as meaning if he's chayiv misa, then he's parted from mammon. But if he's not chayiv misa, v'lo yeh din asun, if he's not chayiv misa, well then he is going to have to pay money. So I mean, it's not talking about whether she survives or if she dies. It means whether or not he's chayiv misa. Ikadamri. There are those who ask the kasha punkt fakert, that it's Rabbi Yochanan asking a kasha and Rish Lakish. Eis Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan taka asks Rish Lakish v'lo yeh ason onesh onesh, that if there's no ason, so then Reuven has to pay money. My love, din ason. And Rabbi Yochanan is asking Rish Lakish, what does this mean? It means v'lo yeh din ason onesh onesh, that if Reuven is not chayiv misa for what he did, so then he has to pay money, right? If there was no warning, then he has to pay money. Lo asun mamish, to which Rish Lakish says meh. He says it means asun mamish. It means that if Sarah survives, so then Reuven pays money. But if Sarah dies, so then regardless of if there was a warning or not, so then Reuven is going to be potter from paying any kinds of money. Omar Rav says Rav. So now Rav asks a kasha. He says, is there really an opinion that chayv miso shogin chayovim? No. We just, right, Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. And he said that both when it comes to chayve miso shogin, when there's no asra by chiyuv miso, and also by chayve malkis shogin, when there's no asra by malkis, Reb Yochanan says that he's chayiv to pay money. And in both of those cases, Rish Lakish says he's potter to pay money. Right? There was no asra by malkis and miso. So now, should I start singing when I teach Babylon Talmud? Maybe, that would be very spiritual. Maybe we can get a whole spiritual thing going on here with Babylon Talmud. Maybe we'll call it Spirit on Talmud. That would be very spiritual. Not very spiritual. That would be very spiritual. Yeah, maybe we could sing it. Let's see. How would we sing it? Da 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 da. No. Maybe we should all sing it. Maybe we should sing a niggin to get into the mood. Which niggin should we sing? Friends, we gotta go weiter. So we were assuming just now that both by Chayve Miso Shogegin and by Chayve Makis Shogegin, Reb Yochanan would say that you chayiv to pay. Says Rave, what are you talking about? Everybody agrees that when it comes to Chayve Miso Shogegin, that if the fellow was Chayiv Misa, but there was no warning, he'd be potter from paying money. Rava says, is there really such an opinion that somebody who did something, a capital offense, but there was no warning, he'd be chayiv to pay money? We learn in the Besmedrash of Chizkiah, right? The pasuk says, that a fellow hits an animal, he's got to pay for it. A fellow hits for another fellow, he's got to die. If you kill an animal, I guess you got to pay for it. If you kill a fellow, you got to die. Pay for it with your life, with your soul, with your spirit. So we compare killing an animal to killing a fellow. Just like when it comes to if you hit an animal, you have to pay back the owner. Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. Whether you did it on purpose, whether you did it by accident, bein miskaven, l'shem miskaven, whether you had intention or not, bein derech yiridila, derech aliyah, whether you hit it on the way down or on the way up, l'fotro mamun or l'chayv mamun. Either way, you can be chayv mamun. That when it comes to damages caused to an animal, you're going to have to pay money no matter what. So also when it comes to, if you kill a fellow, lo tachlok bo, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, bein miskaven, l'shein miskaven, b'derech yiridila, l'derech aliyah, l'chayv mamun, elu l'fotro mamun. Right, so also, right, if you kill a fellow, so again, lo tachlok bo, don't make any distinctions, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, whether he did it on purpose or by accident, bein miskaven, l'shem miskaven, whether he had intention or not, bein derech yiridila, l'derech aliyah, whether up or down, l'chayv mamun, to argue that he's chayiv money, elu l'fotro mamun. He's always going to be potter from paying money when it comes to Misa. So therefore, we have it was taught by the Besmedrash of Chizkiah. I guess it was taught in a Brisa by the Besmedrash of Chizkiah. I mean, Chizkiah was an Amora, but anyway, it was the Brisa, I guess, was taught in the Besmedrash of Chizkiah, that when it comes to Misa, you can be potter from Mammon, regardless of anything. Regardless of if you're chayiv Misa or if there was no Asra and you're potter from Misa. When it comes, if there's a chiyuv Misa, you're going to be potter from Mammon, even if there was no warning or anything like that. So therefore, this is the Kol Adeos, right? Everybody agrees. Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish, everybody agrees that when it comes to Misa, Chayve Misa Shogegin, potter, you're not going to have to pay any money. Eloki, also Ravin. Rather, when Ravin came, Omar, he said, Chayve Misos Shogegin, that when it comes to Chayve Misos Shogegin, that somebody was Chayv Misa but there was no warning or anything like that, Kuli Alma Lo Plige Dipturin, everybody agrees that he's potter. By a Chiyuv Misa, if there's no Hasra, so then everyone agrees that he's going to be potter from paying money. Ki Plige, where there's machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, Bechayve Malkis Shogegin, by lashes if there was no warning. V'davar acher, as well as when there's a financial obligation as well. So you have makis u'mamun. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says, Rabbi Yochanan chayiv that, Rabbi Yochanan says chayiv. So Rabbi Yochanan is going to say that by makis u'mamun, if you're not going to get makis because there was no warning, so then you're going to be chayiv mamun. Because chayve misos iskush, chayve malkios lo iskush. Because the Torah had compared chayve misos, right? Make odom yumos, had compared when you hit somebody and kill him, and now it's a capital case. We compared capital cases to an animal, to say that just like an animal, you're always chayiv mamun. So by capital cases, you're always potter from mamun. But that doesn't apply to makis. And by makis, if you're chayiv makis, so you're potter from mamun. But if you're not chayiv makis, because there's no asra, then you're going to be chayiv mamun. the exception, the exemption from paying mammon is only by Misa, it's not by Makis. Rish Lakish Amar says Rish Lakish, Potter. That Take, Rish Lakish says he's Potter. Oh, did I not do that? I think I did. Excuse me, 1 second. Rish Lakish Amar Potter. Rish Lakish says he's Take Potter. Beferish Rib Satorah Chayve Malkis Kechayve Misos. So Rish Lakish says that also by Makis, if you don't warn him, so then he's going to be Potter. Also by Makis, if you don't warn him, right? Just like by Misa, if it's a capital case but there was no warning, he's going to be Potter from Mammon. So also by Makis, if there was no warning, he's Potter from Mammon. Because because the Torah explicitly included, right, chayve malkios like chayve misos. Heichon ribs the Torah. Where did the Torah include chayve malkios like chayve misos? Amar Abai says Abai osir Rasha that it says Rasha in the context, right? Asher Rasha lamus. Right, that it says Rasha in the context of Misa, and also says Vayom ben Hakos Rasha. It says Rasha in the context of Malchus as well. So it says Rasha by both Malchus and by Misa. So therefore, Rish Lakish wants to say that just like by Misa, even if right Chayve Misa Shogin are Peturin, so also Chayve Malchus Shogin are also Peturin. Rava Omer says Rava Asya Make. Says Rava, we learn out Make. What does that mean? Omer Papa Rava, hey Make. Rav Papa says to Rav, which Makkah are you talking about? Ilema umake be'ema yoshameno make adam yumos. If you want to say Rav that we're talking about make behema yoshameno umake adam yumos, which is what we've been talking about until now. Hai b'ktoliksiv, but that's talking about Misa, not Malkis. Elo hai make nefesh behema yoshameno nefesh tachas nefesh. That the pasuk says that if you hit an animal, then you have to pay for it. V'samach lein, it says right after that. The ish kiyiten mumba amito kasher also kenyi osolo. That a fellow who hurts his friend, so then just like he did, so it will be done to him. V'hai lav makehit, which the Gemara says it doesn't say anything about makeh in that pasuk. It says v'ish kiyiten mumba amito. He says, yeah, but you know the point isn't the specific word. The point is that we're talking about hitting. The point is that we're talking about hitting, right? Makeh nefesh behema and ki ish kiyiten mumba amito. It's talking about damaging another person. But 1 second. But 1 second, that pasuk of v'ish kiton mumba amito kasher also can you also, it's not right. That's talking about when a fellow damages his friend, he hits his friend. And the halacha, as we know, by when you hit your friend, is that you pay money. You don't get makis. Well, if it's not talking about haka'ah where there is a shavet pruta, right? Because that we learn out from a different pasuk of kin yinasin bo. We learn out that that's talking about mammon. So what's this pasuk of vish keiten mumba mito kasher also can you also talking about? Tneu inin la kasher ein ba shavet pruta. Well, let's say then that it's talking about when you hit somebody that there is right, that there is no shavet, right, that you hit him less than the value of a shavet pruta, and the halacha is there is that you chayev makis. So let's say that if it's talking about a situation where you chayev makis, so meaning if you damage the fellow and it's worth a shavet pruta, then you pay mammon. But if it's not worth a shavet pruta, then you don't pay mammon, you get makis. So what do we see? So we see that in a situation where there is makis, so then memele, there's never going to be any mammon. Right? We're comparing the situation where there's not a shavet pruta and therefore you chayev makis. We're comparing that to the animal, just like the animal. Right? There's never a situation where you're going to be potter from mammon. You're always going to have to pay mammon. So also when there's not a shavet pruta and you hit your friend and there's not a shavet pruta and you chayev makis, so there's never going to be mammon. Right? Just like by an animal, there's always mammon. By makis and mammon, there's never going to be mammon. But lav by tashlumenu. But 1 second, the reason why he's not paying money is because it's less than a shavet pruta. There's nothing to pay. So well, it could be talking about a situation that, well, maybe when he hit the fellow and he's chayev makis, it's less than a shavet pruta, but then he also caused some kind of financial damage. So we're saying even in that situation, still he would be potter from paying money. So okay, so that's how. Okay, we see then that according to Rish Lakish, even by makis, even when there's no warning, you're going to be potter from paying money. So now, Amalei Rav Chia le Rave. So Rav Chia asked a kasha to Rave. Who's this Rav Chia? I don't know. Was there a Rav Chia bar Rave? Not sure. It's not Reb Chia, who was Rav's uncle, because obviously that would be much older than Rave. Alright. Who is it? It said, what was it? Meis Rav Yehuda Nolad Rave, Meis Rave Nolad Rav Ashi. That was in a Rashi, maybe like, where is it? Come on. Where are you? Come on, hurry up. Let's go. Come on. We don't have all day over here. What? How far away was that? Come on. Oh, there it is. There's a Rashi in Av Chafal from the base. It says, Yom Shemes Rav Yehuda Nolad Rava. The day that Rav Yehuda died, Rava was born. Yom Shemes Rava Nolad Rav Ashi. The day that Rava was born, Rava died, Rav Ashi was born. So basically, Rava was born when Rav Yehuda died, and Rav Yehuda was a student of Rav, who was the nephew of Rav Chia. So obviously this is a different Rav Chia, and it's not Rebbe Chia, it's Rav Chia, but anyways. Amalei Rav Chia le Rav. Well, Tana Devei Chizkiah. So according to the Tana Devei Chizkiah, the Amar Maki Adam Umake Be'ema, who says that we compare it to hitting a fellow and hitting an animal, to killing, really, to being Chayiv Misa, and to also hitting an animal. How do we know what that is talking about during the week? And there's no difference between if you did it on purpose or if you did it by accident. Dilma b'Shabbos. Maybe we're talking about, hitting an animal on Shabbos. Dilma b'Shabbos ksiv. Behema gufa ikale fluge. That now there's by animal there's a difference. It depends if you did it on purpose or by accident, right? That on Shabbos, if you did it on purpose, then you'd be potter from paying because you'd be chayev skila, and we'd say kam lebederav mine. But if you did it by accident, so then you'd be chayev to pay. So lo sagataytich, no way, no how. The Ksubis, the puzzle says umaka behemi shamenu umaka adam yumos, that we compare hitting an animal to hitting and killing a fellow. Hey chidami. How is this, right? It says, Maka Adam Yumas, that if you hit a fellow, you're going to be Chayiv Misa. How would you be Chayiv Misa? Dilo Asube, if you didn't warn him. So Maka Adam Amay Yumas, then how can you kill him? Elapshita da Asube. So it's talking about where you warned him. Vi b'Shabbos, and if we're talking about Shabbos, Maka Be'ema Yishalmeno. If it's Shabbos, then why would you pay for the animal? If it's talking about Shabbos and you did it on purpose. So Elav B'chol, rather it must be talking about during the week. And it's saying that, whether you did it on purpose, whether you did it by accident, you're going to be chayav to pay money. And then also, when it comes to a fellow, if you kill somebody, whether, there was asra, whether there wasn't, you're going to be potter from paying money. Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. So now Rav Papa says to Abaye. So now, this kind of man, when I was reviewing this, I had learned this yesterday and then reviewed it today. I got stuck for a while when I was reviewing this, but I think I figured it out. So, let's see. Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. So Rav Papa says to Abaye, L'Rabba. The Amar Chidishu Shechid Torah B'Knas. Friends, this stuff is so givad, like, you get so, I was like, I just like raised my, when you learn such geschmack sugyas, you just, you get into it, you lose control, you raise your voice, friends, there's real sugyas over here, there's real sugyas. So, again, Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. Rav Papa says to Abaye, L'Rabba. You see, I yelled a little bit, but how can you say that without getting your whole being into it? What do you want me to tell you? So, L'Rabba the Amar Chidish Hu Shechid Shetorah B'Knas. Friends, do you remember this? We learned this yesterday, I think. That Rabbah had said that there's like a Chidish when it comes to Knas. That even if you're Chayiv Misa, you could still pay money. You could still be Chayiv Mammon as well when it's a Knas. If it's for a fine, because a fine is a Chiddush, right? A fine is something that isn't, right? It's not the principle, right? It doesn't necessarily, it's not logical. It's a fine, right? And therefore, right? So for example, if you steal an animal, and you slaughter it, so I understand why you have to pay back what you stole, the principle. But we say you have to pay 4 or 5 times the amount, right? That's a fine. So that you would pay even if you're Chayiv Misa. So now, according to Rabbi, who says that that Knas is a Chiddush, and therefore you'd be Chayiv to pay the Knas even if you're Chayiv Misa. Even if you're Chayiv Misa, you still pay the Knas. Well, then how do you understand our Mishnah? Ikar Reb Meir kasha bito. If we're going to say, well, our Mishnah is Reb Meir, and it's saying that you are chayav to pay a knas if you sleep with your sister. And then what about the Mishnah in Makis where it says that you chayav Makis? So if you say that it's Reb Meir, well, no problem, right? He says loke u'mishalim. So you can get both, right? Both are right. That the Mishnah in Makis says you get Makis for sleeping with your sister. The Mishnah in Ksubis is saying that you have to pay a fine, and they're both correct. You get Makis and you pay a fine. But here's the question. We're going to learn on tomorrow's daf, kasha bito, right? That if you sleep with your daughter, so then you chayav misa, I think sreifa, and you're potter from the knas. But 1 second. The knas by onus and mafata is just that. It's a knas. So if you're Rabbah and you're saying that you can be chayav for a knas, even if you're chayav misa, so then why were you potter when you sleep with your daughter from the knas? So if we say it's Reb Meir kasha bito, then I don't understand the daughter situation. If it's Reb Nechuni ben Akone who says that you're chayav, that even in a situation where you're chayav koris, you're potter, or in a situation where you're chayav koris, you're potter from paying. Well, kasha achoso. Now, how do you understand achoso? Because in our Mishnah, it says if you sleep with your sister, which is chiyuv koris, so then you still have to pay the knas. Reb Nechuni ben Akana would say you wouldn't have to pay the knas. Ik Reb Yitzchok kasha mamzeres. And if it's like Reb Yitzchok who says that when it comes to any of the arayis, you'd be potter from makis. So that's how you can answer, right? Meaning, so if we ask the kasha, but in makis it says that you get malchus for sleeping with the arayis, and over here we're saying that it's mama, you pay this money. So you could say, well, it's Rabbi Yitzchak who says, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak, who says that by arayis there is no makis, and that's why you pay the fine. But if that's the case, then what's the deal with mamzeres? Because we're saying that mamzeres over here would pay the fine, and Rabbi Yitzchak would say that mamzeres, right? Because that mamzeres he would be chayav makis. So even though he says that by arayis you'd be potter from makis, but by mamzeres you'd be chayav makis. So then why over here would you have to pay the fine? Shouldn't you be potter from the fine? So anicha yisav l'Reb Yochanan. So 1 second. So we basically just said that I don't understand how Rabbah wouldn't make sense. We can't explain that he's Reb Meir, because then we have a kasha bito. And also, we can't say that our Mishnah is Reb Nechuni ben Akona, because then we have the kasha of achoso, where you pay the knas. And we also can't say that it's Reb Yitzchok, because we're saying that by mamzeres you'd be chayav makis, and then how can you explain why he's paying the knas? Shouldn't he be potter from the knas according to Reb Yitzchok? So then, what's left to say that it's the rabbi's opinion? That according to the rabbis, eino loka u'mishalim. Eino loka u'mishalim. So either you get makis, or you chayav mammon, but you're not going to be chayav for both of them. So now, where am I? Hanicha yisav l'Reb Yochanan. Okay, so if Reb Meir, if Rabbah holds like Reb Yochanan, so he says, look, we have a Mishnah in Makis which says that, by these arayis, by like sleeping with your sister, so you can be chayav Makis. And we have a Mishnah in Ksubis which says that you're chayav to pay a knas. And Reb Meir and Reb Yochanan says that, well, if you are chayav, if you were warned, so you'll be chayav makis. If you were not warned, then you're going to be chayav mammon. So I understand our Mishnah over here in Ksubis. Why are you chayav to pay the knas? Because there was no warning. But where am I? Hanicha yisavila Reb Yochanan. Hanami mitaris like Reb Yochanan. So beseder. So Rabbah will say it's like Reb Yochanan. But Ella yisavik Rish Lakish. But if Rabbah holds like Rish Lakish, which is that when that if when there is asra, you get makis and you don't pay money, then also when there's no asra, so you're also going to be potter from paying money. Well then, then then how do you understand our Mishnah? Right? We said that our Mishnah cannot be Reb Meir, it cannot be Reb Nechuni ben Akana, it cannot be Reb Yitzchak. We're saying it has to be like the Rabbanon, so it has to be a situation of, either you get makis or you pay money. And if you say like Rish Lakish, that says that, well, if when you get makis, you don't pay money, so also when there's no makis, you don't pay money. So then how do we understand our Mishnah that says that there's a knas when it comes to sleeping with your sister? Because if you warn the fellow that he's going to get knas, that he's going to get makis, then he'll get makis. And if you didn't warn him, then he'll be potter from mammon. So then how do you understand our Mishnah that says that you have to pay the knas? So al korchech Reb Yochanan Sfirles. Memele, it must be that Rabbah holds like Reb Yochanan, that it's like the rabbis, that it's either makis or mammon, and he holds like Reb Yochanan, that when there's a warning, it's makis, when there's no warning, it's mammon. Omer Rav Masna Labai, says Rav Masna Tabai, the Rish Lakish, the Omer beferish ribsa Torah chayve malkis kechayve misos, that according to Rish Lakish, who says that the Torah explicitly includes chayve malkias like chayve misos, to say that you're going to be potter from mammon. Man tana de Palagali de Nechuni ben Akana, who argues on Reb Nechuni ben Akana. Reb Nechuni ben Akana says that if you are chayiv karis, then you're going to be potter from makis. Alright, so the Gemara says either Reb Meir, either Reb Yitzchak. Well, either Reb Meir or Reb Yitzchak, right? Reb Meir would say that if you're chayiv karis, you would still be chayiv to pay for mammon. Right? Right, that by sleeping with your sister, either you chayiv makis, or, right, meaning, Reb Meir would say, if you sleep with your sister, you're both chayiv makis and you're chayiv mammon, okay? Or it could be Reb Yitzchak, who says that you're not chayiv makis for sleeping with your sister, but you're going to be chayiv a knas. Alright, fine. What do you want me to tell you? Friends, that was Daf Lamed Hey of Masechta Ksubis. That was really quite some daf. I mean, we discussed this machlokas, right, between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about in a situation when there is a chiyuv misa or a chiyuv makis, but you didn't warn him. So do you then pay money, right? I mean, if you're not going to be killing him, you're not going to be giving lashes, then do you still pay money? So Rabbi Yochanan says yes, you still pay money. Rish Lakish says no, you wouldn't pay money. That just like when there's a warning, you would be potter from money. So also when there's no warning, you're potter from money. So now, we saw two. So there was Rav Dimi's version, which is that this machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about whether you're chayiv to pay the money or not is both by when there was no warning by misa or by makis. But then we concluded that everyone agrees that by misa, we compare misa to a behemoth, to an animal, and just like by an animal you're always going to be chayiv to pay, so also by a human you're always going to be, if you kill somebody, you're always going to be potter from paying, regardless of if you were warning or regardless if you're actually going to receive capital punishment. Okay, and then the machlokas was when it comes to makis, right? Rabbi Yochanan says when it comes to makis, if they warned him, says chayiv makis. If they don't warn him, he's chayiv mammon. Whereas Rish Lakish says that just like by makis, you're just like when they warn him, he's going to be potter from mammon. So when they don't warn him, he's also going to be potter from mammon. Okay, that was Betzim Daf Lamed Masechta Ksubis. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.